The true story of the Google Pixel reads almost like a Hollywood movie. It's got executive backstabbing.
Introduce Dr. Eric Schmidt, Google's CEO.
Billions of dollars being spent
to acquire Motorola's mobile handset business for about $12.5 billion.
And despite all of that drama and money being spent, it still seems like nobody cares about the Google Pixel. So before we got the Pixel phones, its precursor, its cousin, its ancestor was the Nexus line of phones. It started back in 2010 with the HTC-made Nexus 1, and it served the purpose of kind of showing how Google thought Android should look. Google obviously was making Android, they were the ones that were developing it, but the products that got into consumers' hands was Samsung's take on Android. It was HTC's and LG's and Sony's at the time. So the Nexus 1 represented what Android should look like and what Android could be as envisioned by Google. So the original Nexus, the Nexus 1, it was made by HTC. It was a crazy time for phones. It was 2010 and the phone market was still changing and moving. Everybody was still trying to play catch up to Apple. And I remember when the Nexus 1 hit, it had a scroll ball for navigation, and that was sort of different. But one of the coolest things about it was actually the wallpaper. You could tap the wallpaper and it was almost like a little snake pattern would move around, and that seemed really cool, and it seemed like something very un-Apple-like, and that oddly tiny little thing made the original Nexus phone, the original Nexus 1, seem appealing, and that was Google's vision of Android. So there's a couple Nexus phones that stand out. Obviously, the Nexus 1. I don't know why the design of the Nexus 4 always sticks out in my head, kind of shimmery, shiny back with wireless charging. We had the Nexus 5 that I think was still like the flagship pinnacle of Nexus phones. The gigantic, at the time, Nexus 6 made by Motorola. These phones brought with them Google's new operating system. You know, that was where you saw the next generation of what Google was offering, whether it was Cupcake, whether it was Donut, Eclair, Froyo, whatever came next, that was where you saw it, and that was kind of the reference phone. At least you could see what it could be from Google's software team working nicely with another manufacturer's hardware team. So it seems like the Nexus line of phones was totally an experiment for something that was going to come bigger. It had been rumored ever since the original Nexus 1 that like Google was going to make their own phone. And then for years, up until the Nexus 6P, it was still something that was going to happen. It was around the corner. So it seemed like a trial period for Google to sort of learn what people wanted. And during that Nexus years of phones, there wasn't like a one killer flagship feature.
So today, I'm very excited to introduce you to a new phone made by Google. We call it Pixel.
So 2016 comes around and Google made what seemed like a crazy decision at the time to sort of pivot away from the Nexus line of phones and give us what became the Pixel. In my fits of insomnia, I've often wondered, this is honestly what I think about at 3 in the morning, why Google abandoned the Nexus line of phones and pivoted to the Pixel. And there's a few reasons that I can come up with. First was to show what they could do as a hardware manufacturer, to show other OEMs what Android could and should look like and perform like. And they did it with a clean slate, so to speak, with the Pixel. It was a new name, it was fresh, it was something that was a unified form factor in Android. When you buy or consider buying a Pixel phone, you're kind of getting an unofficial Pixel promise from Google, what you're going to be getting. I think paramount amongst that is software support. So you're getting at least 3 years of timely OS and security updates. So your Android phone will have the latest and be as secure as Android can be. You're getting as close to a pure Android experience as can be. So you're getting Android as Google envisions it. And usually there's some special features thrown in there too. You're getting things like Night Sight, Top Shot, and call screening, things that are value adds to the Pixel line of phones. And perhaps the biggest Pixel promise is one of the best and getting better all the time, constantly learning camera experience. And I can't overstate enough how amazing and awesome and sometimes seeming like magic Google's learning engine is with their cameras. The pictures get better as the phones age, and that's something that's very unique to what Google is doing. When people bought a Pixel 3, they're getting a phone that was made and manufactured, by Google or with Google's oversight. So they're probably expecting the phone to age, like John Stamos, get better as it gets older. But 6 months in, that phone has been more Benjamin Button style of aging. It hasn't worked and it hasn't gotten better as it's gotten older. I think famously the Pixel 3 has been plagued with memory management issues, which is almost unforgivable in the phone world. It has slowed down incredibly, and it wasn't until the phone had been out for almost 4 months before Google finally fixed the problem. So you're spending flagship money for phones to get a degraded end user experience. And don't misinterpret any of this as saying the Pixel is not a good phone. It's a very solid phone, and people who have them tend to fall in love with them. It's just not selling well, and even Google is admitting as such. So what's interesting too about the Pixel sales numbers is Google is bringing like Thor level thunder for the advertising campaigns. I mean, literally Thor level thunder. It was featured everywhere in Avengers Endgame. We've seen commercials, national campaigns everywhere. There's been a lot of dollars spent to push the Pixel, which kind of leads me to believe that Google is in this game for the longer haul, and they're not just trying to get people to see what Android could be, they want people to actually buy their phones. So it kind of begs the question, with all the money that Google's putting behind launching these phones and promoting these phones and advertising them, why they're not selling well. And so the answer may be software bugs. I mean, as far as the Pixel 2 goes, there was OLED burn-in. The screen was perhaps subpar to a lot of people's eyes. The Pixel 3 had issues at launch with photos not being saved to the camera roll, and then shortly after they had memory management issues. These are problems that affect almost every user of the phone, and if they're not affecting every user, they're certainly changing the perspective, at least, of the devices. And the big selling point for the Pixel is awesome camera and software updates are sort of the two giant selling points that come with it. But now the competition has gotten so much better and you generally get a lot more. So comparing the Android world to the Galaxy S10, you're getting things like an in-screen fingerprint reader, you're getting a wide-angle camera, you're getting a lot of things that you're not getting with the Pixel. And the delta between how good the Pixel camera is versus the competition has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. So the reasons to want to get a Pixel have also gotten smaller with it. So obviously Google's had problems selling the Pixel phones. You can see that just by the sales numbers. But they might also have a solution to this to get more Pixel phones in more people's hands. So Google's clearly had problems selling the Pixel phones, despite them being really solid options in the smartphone market. And the problem might have been the price, and Google has perhaps solved that with the new Pixel 3s, the 3A and the 3XL, bringing, I think, the best features of their big brothers down market at a price point where they become much more affordable and also, I think, more appealing to the mass market. So you're getting the amazing camera and getting a pretty awesome build quality despite it now being a polycarbonate back. You're losing some things like the IP rating, but you're getting some things too, like a 3.5mm headset jack. The price point that the A and the XL are at right now, in my opinion, should be where Google is competing at. That's the sweet spot. And at that price point, there's tolerance for perhaps some software or memory issues. There's tolerance for maybe not the best screen in the market, but you're still getting that flagship camera. I think Google's gonna move a lot of units, and when you look back and 6 months later on the 3A and the 3XL, I think it's gonna be a different story than the 3 and the 3XL. We're gonna see a lot of phones that got moved off shelves, perhaps more availability. People will maybe look at the Pixel line again or reconsider whatever might come next from Google. So at $399 now, the Pixel 3A is a really compelling phone. You are getting that amazing camera experience without having to spend $700 to get there. I think it was a brilliant decision by Google, and I would imagine they're still probably going to be losing money on each phone right now, but they may not for Gen 2 and Gen 3 of the new A line. I wouldn't be surprised if those A and AXL version phones just drop the A and become the next version of the Pixel. So since that video was filmed, I've been rocking the Pixel 3A for about 5 days, and the impressions still hold true. It is a really solid phone. I don't mind the plastic build, it still feels premium, and I'm more convinced now than I was before that this is the market Google should be competing in. I don't think they belong competing with the flagship Samsungs, the flagship LGs, and Apple. This is a perfect space for them to be in. You get the best that Google has to offer with the amazing cameras at a price point that's more affordable, and I think will help Google ultimately sell more phones, which it seems is the goal. But certainly there's a lot of competition here, including that guy right there behind me, the OnePlus 7. So I think the Pixel 3a line is perfect. I still hope that this is where the Pixel line goes. And don't interpret this video as me not liking the Pixel phone. That's never what this has been about. The Pixel line of phones have been very good. They've had a troubled past, all the way back to the Nexus line of phones, but their future, for the first time, seems promising.